So I'm a supervisory special agent. My title is Assistant Special Agent in Charge for the Bureau of Land Management, law enforcement.
Okay, so tell the audience what BLM does, because most people have no idea.
Sure. So funny enough, being born and raised in Texas, I'd never heard of BLM. I'd never heard of public lands. I'd never even heard of that term because anybody from Texas knows there's basically no public lands. Everybody owns nearly every square inch of Texas. And so when I moved up here, I eventually started to understand the concept of public lands between BLM, Forest Service, and the state public lands. So BLM only operates in the Western U.S., or vast majority, 98% of our land, like 99%, is only in the Western U.S., basically from like Colorado on west, all the Western kind of Rocky Mountain states out to the coast. So we have a very unique mission when it comes to managing public lands in that we're the only agency that has a true multi-role use of the land, and that we try to maintain a balance between preserving the land and preserving nature, and also finding ways to use that land to people's benefit. Whether it's something as simple as recreating and going off-roading, going hiking, going hunting, camping, just all the fun stuff that people love to do outdoors in the West, to oil and gas leases, mining leases, timber, just renewable energy leases, solar panels, wind farms, you name it. We have all those great uses of the land. And fun fact, BLM is the only government agency that puts more money back into the government than we spend. We take in royalties and fees and all that kind of stuff from all these permits and leases to companies. We put more money back in the government than we spend.
So in terms of the special agents that are working under you, what are they predominantly investigating?
Yeah, so when it comes to law enforcement, BLM has kind of two different divisions. There's our uniformed rangers who are in marked patrol units, and you can think of them as just like any patrol unit that you'd see in a city or a county. And then we have our agents, and you kind of think of them as like detectives. So for the agents, we're looking at any more long-term investigation that affects either BLM land, our property, or our people. So each area, kind of each state is very different when it comes to the investigations, because it depends on what are your natural resources, what's your land like, what's your public lands like in your state. So here we have a pretty wide mix of what we work. I'd say if I had to pick a number one case, it would be wildland arson, people out setting fires, wildfires. So we'll investigate any suspicious human-caused fire on public lands or that affect public lands in Idaho. And then we also work just run-of-the-mill property crimes, just like any property crimes detective. People like to steal things from the BLM. We have strategically located facilities and offices all over Idaho, and they're not always in use depending on the time of year. So we'll have people come in and they'll break in and steal four-wheelers or steal chainsaws or power tools or trailers. I mean, you name it. And that all comes to us. So then we work that as any theft of government property case and try to recover the property and put somebody in prison for doing that. And then I pride the fact that we do our very best to work our cases wherever the case goes. And that's me as a supervisor, that's always been a kind of basic tenet of how I do my job. I want to see this case where it goes. It's not my job to tell some other agency to do their job. Like, I started this because I have the authority, I have the knowledge, the skills, and the means to continue this case wherever it goes. And we really try our best, even with very limited resources. We're a small agency, to continue on wherever the case goes. So if a small arson turns into a completely weird and random money laundering wire fraud case, like, we're going to do that. I know we may need some help, but we're going to do it. It may turn into a narcotics trafficking case. It could turn into a gun case. So we work with the ATF. So we do a lot more than people would probably ever imagine. And then each area, so just for instance, illegal marijuana grows are still a thing on much of BLM land, more in California and Western Oregon. But we've got agents out there that work marijuana grows all the time. And we haven't really seen that in Idaho a lot. Some of the other states don't really see it anymore. But we kind of all have our niche as to what each office is good at and what you see out there on your public lands, and just trying to keep the land safe, the people safe, the resources safe.